それではお時間になりましたので、セッションを始めていきたいと思います。セッションの司会を担当しております、赤塚と申します。このセッションのタイトルは I've been hacked, so now what? ということで、ネスターさんにお話しいただきます。ネスターさんは、なんとスペインのカナリア諸島に住んでいらっしゃるということで、テクノロジーの大ファンです。コンピューターサイエンスエンジニアで、写真が大好き、あとコーヒー愛好家だということですね。ですごく学習にも情熱を注いでいらっしゃいます。で、ブースにも立っていらっしゃるんですけども、コーダディの会社であるスクリという製品でセキュリティアナリストとして働いていらっしゃいます。で、毎日サイバーセキュリティの世界で、悪いハッカーですね、バックドアに対応していらっしゃるということです。じゃあそれではよろしくお願いします。皆さん、大きな拍手でお願いいたします。
ありがとうございます。Okay. Oh, okay. Perfect. So, ありがとうございます。Yeah, following the community involved right here, trying to share with you some topics about cybersecurity. So, I would like to first thanks to the organization of this WordCamp. For giving me the opportunity to be here. I'm very proud, very honored, so thank you very much for the assignments. Before we start, I would like just to mention that how cybersecurity works nowadays. So, every people that's in the room right now has two identities, right? There is one identity, which is the real one, the physical one. So I can see around that you care about security when there is an earthquake or when there is a typhoon or something like that. There are a lot of signs, there are a lot of ways of bringing security to the people here in Japan, but also for security for the people that depends on you, right? So when we are talking about the second part of your identity is the digital one. So it's fragmented. It's composed with a lot of identities. For example, if you use Facebook, if you use Twitter, if you have an account in a video game or something like that, all of those conforms your digital identity, right? So if you care about security in the physical world, why not care about security in the digital world? And that's what's when cybersecurity pops into this scenario. So first of all, I want to say konnichiwa to all of you. Thank you very much. I want to present myself a little bit. It's something just to give some context. I'm a computer science engineer. Also, I consider myself a technology consultant. But what defines me first is that I'm a truly tourist. Okay, I will start working in 2015 with Sucuri as an incident response analyst. And also in the ECSSL service that now Ugarte has is just to install the SSL service certificates in your site in a very easy way, right? And in 2019, I was also participating as a head of IT coordinator of the IT part of the Ugarte Spain. Okay, so Ugarte has a lot of parts. There's an American one, EMEA, so on. About Sucuri. Sucuri is the company I'm working in. Sucuri was bought by Ugarte, so we are now a proud member of the family of Ugarte. And it was bought in 2017. But the company was founded in 2008, right? It's fully remote company, so we are around the world in a lot of countries. We can work from everywhere. That's why I'm here. I can work from beautiful country. And if you are thinking about the name, Sucuri, it's a very typical topic when I mention it. That is not bad spelled, okay? Sucuri is a Brazilian word that means anaconda. It's a snake from the Amazon, okay? But, you know, works very well because it's similarity with the security word. One of the things I want to mention is that I'm gonna mention during my presentation is two scanners. The site check one, you can use it freely. It's just to check if the site is okay. Don't rely on the result as your life, because the result is, if it is green, if it is the result of the scanner is okay, it doesn't mean that you don't have anything inside of your site. But if the scan says that something is going wrong, it's real going on. Okay. And the performance one is just a scanner that you can get your site checked against all the nodes Sucuri has around the world. So you can check how your site performs around the world if you just want, if you are concerned about speed or something like that. Okay. Yeah. So please, we're gonna start, or we're gonna want to connect the dots. So my first part is gonna be just showing you what I'm going to present here. And also giving some facts that's important to know. Okay? So, first part is the most boring one, but maybe it's gonna be useful for you. Concepts, and also I want to make a disclaimer. So, everything I show in the presentation, some of the data may be sensitive, so keep in mind that all of them has been encrypted or protected just for preserving the privacy of the clients or the examples I'm using, right? Any similarity, and it's just considered just a consequence, right? Also, I'm responsible for what I say. So everything you're gonna see in this presentation is made with my experience and my thoughts. Every question you may have about security, please consult an expert. Okay, you can ask me, you can ask any other you know. Okay. First of all, this guy is John Chambers. He's the CEO of Cisco. You probably may know. He's responsible of probably one of the biggest company network around the world. He says something about there's two kind of companies in the world, right? Those that has been hacked and those that doesn't know that yet have been hacked yet. So it's very interesting summary of how we see the world in cybersecurity, right? Yeah. Let's talk about hackers. Every one of you, it's very normal around all the people that doesn't know a lot about cybersecurity to use the term hacker. Hacker is, we consider as a hacker a curious guy that is going beyond. It's just going beyond the limits, beyond the use of an object or an algorithm or a scenario. But it's only just a curious guy that wants to go beyond. A cyber terrorist hacker is the bad guy, right? And this is the one we are normally using. So it's a misuse of the word. A cyber terrorist is a computer hacker which wants to enrich himself against the rest of the content in a zero game situation, which means if I gain 5 points, you lose 5 points. So if I gain some money, you lose that money. So let's say that the bad hacker is a cyber criminal. Normally I'm gonna use hacker just to look big, or the bad hacker, the bad guy. And the good hacker, because at the end, all the people that works in cybersecurity and as a security analyst, we are in the investigator, we are like crime scene investigators, or we are the police, right? So we have to be hackers as well to understand what the bad guys are about, right? Well, another thing that I want to say is about web security. Cybersecurity is the security of the digital world, as I said in the beginning. Web security is just a part of the cybersecurity. So it's very common to hear that people say, oh, you are an expert in cybersecurity, so you can hack servers. Say, yes, hold on, because my knowledge field is web security, so there is a lot of fields there. Yeah, maybe I can hack servers if I have to, but what I'm going to talk about and what I'm working on, where I'm working, is in web security, right? Which is only that concerns what happened in the port 18 or 443, which needs browsers. Okay? Well, some facts, interesting facts. Site hacking almost never is client-oriented. It's not person-oriented. It's not domain-oriented. Which means if you have a website of heating and it got hacked, don't cry thinking that hackers just want to hack your site. It's just a matter of infrastructure. So they don't want your site because of the content. So it doesn't matter if your site is for example, a classroom study service or application, or something to raise funds about cancer. It doesn't matter. They want your infrastructure, no one. Okay, so in the 98% of the cases, it's not matter of you. The second part also is important to say. Normally, this happens because you or the owner of the site hasn't really care about it. There is a deficient monitoring and deficient maintenance. Okay, so it's important to know that if you want to get your site secure, you have to maintain, you have to monitor. Also, just to break your heads, and unfortunately, security will never, and it's not 1% effective. I mean, no matter how many plugins you have in your site, no matter how many measures you take to be safe, there is always at least one opportunity to hack your site. So don't try or don't back people saying, hey, I got this plugin, so I should be secure. No. One of the things that's important is that security is made by people, and people can pay. Another thing interesting is the lack of known about SSL certificates. So I want just to stop here and explain a little bit. SSL certificate is not an anti-hacking shield. So I mean, is it needed? I say yes. Why? Because the communication between people and your server, the users and your server, the database, or something like that, okay, can be heard by third persons, okay? So if you don't want to get your communication leaked, you have to encrypt all the things that goes out of your device to the server. You have to encrypt that information, you have to protect that. That's what SSL certificate does, okay? So it's very important. But also if you don't care about information that is being transmitted between you or the user and your site, there's another reason. Search engines like Google, Yahoo, Bing, and others take care about this and gonna rank you lower if you don't have an SSL certificate, okay? So there is a money reason and there is a security reason about this. Having an SSL certificate gonna make secure the communication from users to servers. So if there is a hacker hacking your site, it's gonna be secure. You're gonna hack your server securely. Okay? So it's not an issue the anti-hacking sheet. Next, next two facts. This one is just to make you understand that security patches normally are appear after hacking exploits. So normally hackers are working to exploit your sites, and then security analysts identify that and then disclose the solution, and the companies make security patches. That's why updating your site, updating your devices is so important. And nevertheless, as I said, human being fails. This is a Latin quote, errare humanum est, which means that everything made by a human is not perfect by default. So if you take this as an axiom, you probably understand why security won't be never 100% effective. Okay. So typical objectives in WordPress. So if you get hacked your site, normally it's not interesting about the content, but it's one of the reasons. So normally hackers wouldn't want user information. For example, if you have a registration in your website, they may want your usernames, your user's username, maybe the password if you are not protecting them carefully. They will want names or all your user database to spam them. So users are one of the points. The database and information that is stored there is also important. So your site has content, and the content is important even if it is in the database or even if this is videos or pictures, like for example the session before. We recommend that. The other important part is difficult to understand to the people that doesn't know about security or even about this kind of technology is the infrastructure. So I can use your infrastructure for my enrichment. For example, I can inject inside your site a script to mine cryptocurrency. So every user that is getting into your site is mining cryptocurrency for me. Is using their infrastructure to make me rich. So this also, for example, infrastructure is important. For example, if I want to attack other places or other websites or other services, because I can use your site and 100 of them to attack at the same time, one more. So infrastructure is one of the typical most important objectives when a website got hacked or get hacked. If I were a hacker, I can convert your site as well in a botnet. So I can coordinate, I can sync a lot of sites to attack one point, as I said before, or I can sync the websites to jump into any of them, making untrackable my trace. So if I hack, for example, the Pentagon in the United States, I'm not going to do directly from my laptop. I'm gonna just jump into a botnet node, then to another one, then to another one, then to another one, then to another one, and like this 100 times, and then I will use that node to attack the Pentagon. So if the bot is just trying to back tracing, won't find my trace because there is a lot of things. So it's important also to keep in mind that maybe your site has been hacked, but you don't know about that. And reputation is important as well. There is a lot of cases we have trying to get care about CEO. So it's a typical strategy from other companies to use to lower your reputation, to make my company better rank in the search engine. So hackers knows about this and they know how to get business about this. So the reputation is also a coin in this transaction. Well, typical explanation of how to hack a WordPress. This is important because normally people doesn't know how this happened. At the end, it's not easy to understand, but let me try to simplify it. So to hack a WordPress, there should be a vulnerability. Vulnerability is something is just because there is a plugin and the programmer using the programmer of that plugin made just a mistake and get an information from a field, and that information is interpreted as it is. But if I put in the field, for example, code, if it is not great, the code can be executed inside of the site. So it's important to know that it doesn't happen because it's in the air. Okay, there has to be a vulnerability or exploit, which is a program that finds vulnerability. Okay, so once there is a vulnerability, happens an injection. This injection could be just final code. I can just inject spam in your site. I can just inject new admin users or fake users, or I can inject a backdoor, which is a program that allows me to get control of your site whenever I want. Okay? Using a backdoor, of course, then I can do whatever I want in the future. Well, I hope I haven't scared you a lot. These facts is important to know about the context of cybersecurity and the importance of that. So my first point is done. The second point I'm gonna be scare you more. Okay, if you allow me, I'm gonna show you some examples of hacked sites. I don't know how many people here has been hacked anytime. Nobody? Yeah. So you know what is the stress you feel when you get hacked, right? So here there are some examples as a horror gallery, right? The first one is defacement. Defacement is the most typical, the most spectacular one. It's just matter of change the page. For example, you have this page, and then I deface it, and I put this one. For example, I deface it. And this is a real example. For example, this is a photographer site. This is a part of a photography site, and as you can see, there is some galleries. So probably you click on them, and you can see some pictures related with that topics. And this photographer wakes up in the morning, looking, having his website looking like this. So if you analyze this in a cold mood, this is nice because there is a hacker that has found vulnerability and that just alert you with this finding. Okay, so it's very Halloween style, right? Or maybe you have a kitten in the show. You wake up with this message in the morning, or your users wake up because in Twitter or on Facebook they are boosting you, saying, "Hey, what's happening with your site? You are getting a free Syria message on your site." So it could be difficult. For example, this one. This is another cybersecurity group around the world. So defacement at the end are partial or full replacement of the web frontend, but it's only that. It's very obvious. And normally every scan is easy to detect by scanners and also by users. The object is normally just awareness about the vulnerability and or a political information. Okay. So phishing. Probably you all know about phishing. It's not intent to get information just imitating other sites, right? At the end is something like a login or a checkout web page imitating others. Now that we are very close to the Black Friday stores, you have to be very, very careful about this, okay? Because there is a lot of companies doing phishing right now to get your information, get your bank accounts, and so on, imitating other shops, other related ones. It's very subtle. It's very difficult to be aware of them because it looks like very familiar with your bank login page or whatever. So the detection here is more about users, more about scanners, and especially about blacklisting. Some companies like Google, like Kaspersky, like McAfee, Norton, those have blacklists. So it's very easy that you get blacklist before noticing that this happens. Okay. So for example, this is a Dropbox login page. I know that it's not a new one, but this was pretty similar to the old one. Okay, so a person who is not very careful about that can see this after clicking in a link and say, oh wait, okay, it's asking for login. Okay, let's log in. And the information will be linked to an Action PHP page. So I don't want to pretend that you are coders, but I want to point that there is a Dropbox business title, which is a little bit suspicious, and there is an option form that sends the information of the username and the password to this file, and this file is sending to toby.michel4@gmail.com all the information of the Dropbox login information, along with the ID and the country you are from. So this is a very typical phishing page. You can find like this, for example, mails or whatever. Black SEO or spam. You can find that your site has been hacked in this way. There is a agency of designers. You can see this is a normal website about our work services, but that banner there, but it shouldn't be there. Okay? So this affects to your reputation at the end, and Google get you blacklist, and every user getting inside of your site will see this kind of page. And then, of course, you can get ranked in Google with that tag. This site may be hacked, so it's going to affect a lot to your reputation. Here you can see another example of spam inside of your site. It's not that obvious like the other one, but you can find that there are some directories there, which very strange names. And if you don't take care about the files that are in your site as well, you can get crawled by Google or any other search engine like this, having your domain here, which is correct, but promoting things that is not in your website. So the detections normally happen because search engines warnings or because users are losing a lot. Redirection, this is very fresh. I don't know if you have been hacked or how you have been visiting any page and get redirected to a strange page, but this is very, very fresh. This at the end is just putting the domain in the URL toolbox, and then you get redirected to other pages. The detection is not easy because normally the last infection of this kind has been directly modifying the URL of the site. So there is no injection. So it's difficult to use an automatic way to detect that the radiation has been done badly. Okay? Affects to your SEO and affiliate ones. For example, here there is a database script, and you can see here that the site URL on the home one has been modified by the hacker. So the hacker is so every user is being redirected to this kind of pages or this kind of object. Okay, very cute, but at the end they are not. Credit card and login stealers is another way of hacking. Once again, I don't want to pretend that you are coders, but just summarizing, this is the typical process of a checkout. So it is storing the name of a credit card owner, the email, the credit card it's safe, and then credit card number itself, the codes and so on, and then mailing it to the MindBehive at gmail.com. So it's that easy as one code line. Okay? It's very difficult to get this kind of hacking. The only scanner that works here is the file integrity one, but it's very noisy. So it's normally needs an expert to get to know about this. If there is a credit card leak, at least in Europe, you have to report to police. So every time we find this kind of infection in Europe, we have to warn the client, the customer, that there is an obligation to report to the police. Of course, I don't know if you know about that, but in Europe it's a GDPR compliance and you are fulfilled. Okay, so DDoS attacks. I'm not sure if you have experimented these years. Some days that WhatsApp was down, went down, or Facebook, or any other services. DDoS attack is a coordinated attack to use a lot of resources to attack one point. So, just to explain what happens is that your site is this name. So, as you can see here, poor guys get overflow. So this is what happened in 2016 when WhatsApp, Facebook, and other services was down during, I think, one day or something like that. And it was only because thousands of places sent a lot of sites. A lot of websites was used to attack one service, the thin one, which is one that has been or is being used by Netflix or WhatsApp and so on. So this is a real map of what happened in that. Well, it's not easy to detect this kind of hacking. The best way is just that you get from your hosting provider something like, hey, you have a very strange use of your resources. Suddenly, yesterday you sent 1,000 of emails, or you get your CPU at the 100% during the whole day, something like that. So it's very stupid. The best way to avoid this is having a WAF. WAF is a firewall from a web application. Okay? It's a firewall only for web applications. The objective here on this kind of attacks is just to use the resources of your site. Okay? So it's important to understand. So I hope that I not scare you too much. But if something of this happens to you, what can you do? What is the next step to be done? So now what? Or as I said, also known as reactive measure. Reactive means that something happens or you have to react right now. There are two kinds of reactions. Something that happens and something before happens. Okay? So these are normally the steps that you have to do when you get hacked. First of all, you have to put your guys, your developer, your admins, and your users, if it is applied here. You have to notice that. You have to warn them that this happened. After that, please get in touch with the hosting provider. Normally, hosting provider can fix the majority of security holes. Okay, it's that easy like restoring a backup or just changing some things. Okay, if this not works, you can just get in touch with a security expert or even external. Okay, some actions that you can do yourself. You can do those yourself, for example. First of all, it's very obvious. Just try to figure out what happens if you are not technology savvy. There is a scanner, I mentioned before, site check. So you can just pass a scanner, and you can see here, for example, is a website that has been hacked, and it's very easy to point where. There are some JavaScript files that have been hacked with unwanted tags. So you know exactly what happened. This is important if you want to get a security expert in your site or wherever. The second step is what we call normally CRC. Check, remove, and check. First of all, check and remove. It's important to check on your admins, WordPress environment, check the plugins, the themes, and remove all of them that are not in use, which means not disabled, remove. Because even a plugin disabled can be used for hacking your site. So everything that is not being used in your site has to be labeled. The other part is updated backups. If you have been using a backup system or something like that, there are backups in your site, remove them. If they are useful, please download a local copy first. But updated backups is very typical point to attack your site as well. And development or testing sites in your production service is very typical if you are developers, guys, that you made something like your domain /new, and then put the new version of the web there. If you do that, normally all the people just to make easier the access to your client, to your customer, to the people, you put stupid passwords like 123456 or Andy123 or something like that. Keep in mind that a hacker can break these kind of sites in a matter of seconds. So using a dev or testing site, you can get access to the whole server or maybe to the whole account. Also, another thing that is very obvious is change all the passwords. Once a hacker gets into a WordPress environment, they can access to the dbconfig PHP file, and there is the password of the database. So if you have been hacked, one of the first things you have to do is to change all the passwords, but not only the VT admin or the dashboard access, all the passwords. Okay, the cPanel, the FTP, the hosting provider, all of it. And please don't reuse it. This is an example of a hack site with fake admins. I have hide with red lines, those that are layered, just to protect the privacy of this client. But you can see that there are some of them very, very strange, right? There is an admin with a key. Of course, the picture is very informative, but there is an email like no@email.com. So this is very strange. I have been post one post, so be careful about this. Or there are some admins, admin users like this one, which seems to be used in a migration service. So if they are not useful any longer, you can remove them easily. And the other one is a very well-known thing. So if all of this doesn't work as a last option, you can restore a backup. The backup, I always say that the backup should be the last option. Because at the end, you can lose information. If you made a backup yesterday and this happens at the end of the day, all the things that happen today are going to be lost. And also, there is not that certain when the infection happens. So maybe you can restore a backup and then the issue is still there. And it's important to know. So do you think you have backups? It's important to check. You maybe think you have backups, but you have to check. So now that we have exposed these things that you can do yourself, let me try to educate you or to help you with some steps that has been done before normally, but normally this kind of steps that is taken when something happens and you get your site cleaned up, and then you are aware that some security is important. So never again or proactive measures, not reactive, proactive. The most important thing I want to mention here is that security is not a whole thing. It's a matter of layers, like for example, anonymous. Okay? The first layer is you. You are the weakest layer, always, because I can cheat you very easily using social media or using I don't know, phishing procedures or something like that. So at the end, you are one of the layers that has to be protected. And the only way to protect to be protected in this layer is to educate you, to show what happened, to show what could happen. And if you show some curiosity to ask to experts if something is going wrong. The second is your device. So you're using devices, so the device can have antivirus to protect it. So it's important as well. You can, no matter if it is a laptop or if it is a PC or if it is a mobile phone, whatever. Then the device connects to your server, to your site, so the connection has to be secure as well. The SSL certificate is important here. Then your connection, your device, all the users want, hit your site. When you hit your site, there is a firewall that has to analyze that your connection is there. Then after that, there are some problems with the credential. At the end, you are using a login and a password, and those should be strong. And I recommend very strong also to have a second factor authentication system. So it means not only the username and password, but also another application that has to be send a code or something like that. So this second factor authentication is very important nowadays. I think it's that important that in Europe they are obligated to change to all the banks to have this as a must to all the users. Well, when you are in your site, you are logging, so the site should have security. At the end, it's normally summarized in monitoring and always getting it updated. Your server also has to be secure as well. The database as well. And all of that has to be wrapped in maintenance tasks. So this is not a once-day task. This is not a once-day action. It has to be done and monitored every time. It's important to know that there is a lot of layers here. There is not a plugin that covers all of this. Well, the other thing is to get in mind or to keep in mind the minimum privilege principle, which means to Caesar where it's Caesar's, or in other words, you have users that use that is for publishing, or using users that is only for checking things in the site. So those users doesn't need administrator privilege. So try to use the exact privilege for each user. Okay. The more admin you have, the more it's like a rule. If you think about the art of the war, the more doors your house have, the more difficult to defend it. And don't reuse passwords, please. And this is applied to all the lives. I mean, it's not only for PP admin, it's also important if you create a FTP access to a developer and the developer is not working anymore in the company, please leave it off. As I mentioned before, backups can be the best thing in your bad day, your best friend in your bad day. So it's important to have a backup strategy. It's important to never store them in a production server, so keep in mind that the backup should be in other folders totally different of your website, or in other server if possible, or even in local. And I want to remark this functional. It happens that sometimes get the site break, and then we can't recover the site because the code is totally impossible to decode, or the credential has been lost. And we ask for a backup to the client, and the client sends us a backup, but the backup is corrupt. So it happens. Please check that it's functional. Every people that we are in cybersecurity always say this. Please update always. There are some sysadmins, there are some developers that say, hey, if I update every time your site, my site or something like that, I can get a break, because sometimes happens that the update is not compatible with some plugins or something like that. But I prefer always to recommend this, because you have to keep in mind that the cost of recovering your site, the money you can waste if your site gets hacked, is way higher than if you just spend some time trying to fix this issue of compatibility. So even if the site gets break, always update. The updates normally are security patches. Every time a breach of security is found, there is a patch, or there is an update. So at the end, I recommend to invest in hosting and security. Hosting is at the end the first stage of defense. But you should try to find a balance between prices and features. At the left, you can see a neighborhood. All the neighbor can be noisy or can affect others. So if you have your site in a website, in a shared hosting, you can be in this position. So maybe it's cheaper, but your site can be affected by others. If you invest in a dedicated server, maybe it's more expensive, but you will be alone, and the security will depend on you. And nevertheless, my friend WAF, which is something I recommend really for you. Normally the WAF nowadays includes a CDN, so your site gets used as well. But normally in Europe, WAF sounds like a dog barking, so I say WAF, WAF every time to my customer. And this is how a firewall works. All the traffic gets from the left, goes along the firewall network. Here is the Sucuri one, but it's the same in other firewalls. And if the connection is a malicious one, or it's trying to reach something that we know that is vulnerable, get broken. If not, hit yourself. So I want to end trying to encourage you guys to be a little bit hacker in your life. Everybody needs a hacker. Everybody needs people with curiosity to go beyond. Okay, so please, this is my recommendation to all of you. So thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu.